Welcome to the MBU Football Coaches Show with Coach B, and I am Guy Danhoff, Coach. We know that you had your big season opener 2 weeks ago. Game temps were around 9 degrees, and we have to just jump right in. Obviously, the team played Olivet Nazarene from Bourbonnais, Illinois, Chicago team, very much used to the cold kind of conditions, as evidenced by the fact of all the travel, let's just say, preparing for the elements that they had with them. But with that, Coach, what was it like playing your very first game at home in this beginning of the 8th year of the program?
Well, it was really exciting. You know, that was something we had talked to the players a lot about, and something we talked about in even kind of our final team meeting was just don't miss how historic and how awesome that was to be able to run out on our own field for the first time. That's a big deal, and I think before we, like I said, in our final team meeting that we had, I got a little emotional with the guys and just kind of shared with them, all the work that so many people have done to get to that point. It's a little bit reminiscent of when we played SEMO in our very first game, and where I shared with the guys just how much how long the school had waited and how many people had worked to get to that point. Not just coaches, but so many beyond that. And this was a little bit different, I think, even in the sense that maybe even a little bit more emotional than our first game ever as a program, just because, so many of us have put in the work here now, and not just on our staff, but the players, and how cool it is for some of our seniors to be able to take the field for the first time. So we wish the conditions were different. Obviously, need to play a lot better. But you mentioned 9 degrees. I think I'd have taken 9 degrees any day of the week. But with the wind and everything, it was a cold day, and we just didn't play very well. It probably affected us more than maybe we let on going into it. But, it still was a really neat day for everybody to be able to play a first home game on Spartan Field.
So, Coach, as you know, I actually went out in pregame, actually shot some amateur footage, if you would, of certainly, watching some of the pregame activities. And it was great getting a chance to talk to your players, even their players, and just how their program had been 440 days since they played a competition game. And everyone really wanted to have that game. And it was just kind of nice to see the players really wanting it, because everyone's been longing for it. Everyone really appreciates the game, I think, a lot more. Yeah. So with that being said, it was cool from that standpoint. I shouldn't probably use the word cool, given the fact that game temps started at 3 degrees with certainly some wind chill. But with that, let's kind of now move into the game itself. Obviously, it's not the game that you wanted to see happen, but you started off early really well by taking a lead 3-0 on your very opening drive. So with that, if you could maybe give us the season opener recap, if you could, and put in your thoughts this particular game.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, in the importance of playing that game. I think, had this been maybe a different situation, we might have looked to postpone the game. I know both of our schedules, Olivet and ours, it was something that was going to be hard to reschedule. We knew that going in. We had, Olivet, we're playing them here in this upcoming week again, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But both of us had been so many days. We had already had a team from Michigan cancel because they couldn't play. And I think both sides, both athletic directors, both coaches, and obviously, as you mentioned, most importantly, the players, they were hungry to play. I think had on either side, and I talked to their head coach numerous times throughout the week. I talked to their AD several times throughout the week, Mr. Conway, and obviously Tom and I talked throughout the week. And we all felt that this was something that the players really wanted to, and that was something that they were conveying to us. So it really was important. It's such a psychological thing for them. And all the hardships that the young people have had to go through, and things that they've missed and had to push back. So it was really important to get out there. And you're right, we started well. we put together a decent drive in our opening drive, and then were hurt a little bit by a penalty. Got a turnover, got great field position. Obviously, we couldn't capitalize in the way we wanted, but we were able to put points on the board. And then after that, we just made too many mistakes. We have a young football team. I think going into the week, when we did the show with Brad, both of you guys were kind of asking, hey, how do you replace the talent that you're missing? And I think the obvious answer is that you don't. Like, you just don't. I've been pretty honest with that. Is you don't walk out there and replace an Isaiah King right away. That's a special player with a special talent. And there's other guys like that too. DeCorey McGee is a guy who has opted out of the spring for family reasons, and we love him and appreciate him doing that, and we look forward to having him back. But that makes a difference on our defense, and it's great to get other guys experience, but they've got to get that, as we say, OJT, that on the job training. But there was also a point in that game where the cold made a difference, where there were some things that took place during that game that were out of anybody's control, and unfortunately weren't necessarily aiding us, with the way the weather was. But we've got to play through it. We've got to work through it, and hopefully that goes down in the record books as the coldest game that we ever play. I'd be happy with that.
I think we all do. And the only real big stat I just want you to kind of mention, because it does play into certainly the way the stats turned out, and this is about probably the only thing I'm going to ask or really comment on, is the fact that their time of possession in the second half, we ran a total of 8 plays. Yeah. It's pretty hard to imagine that they could pull off 7-8 minute drives in those conditions, and where we only had a total of 8 plays. So I was just wondering maybe if you could comment to that, and then we'll definitely be moving on to one big bright highlight of the game. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, the conditions on both sides, I think you and I spoke after the game, and you're like, hey, coach, you didn't stretch the ball vertically at all. And a lot of that was by design. I think both coaches, we kind of felt like, okay, in certain times we would have the wind at our back, and that's when we would be able to, maybe utilize some of the vertical pass game. You notice, like, when they were going into the wind, that was a stiff wind, and they threw it downfield a little bit with a little bit more success, but it wasn't something they were looking to do a whole lot of as well. I mean, the wind played a role, I felt like, in that game, and definitely how we approached that game. So, and we turned the ball over a couple times as well in that third quarter. But yeah, I can't remember a game. I mean, it was not good in the sense that I can't remember a game where we would get 8 offensive snaps and but kudos to them. They were able to stay out there. They were able to grind it out. And, because of our turning the ball over and miscues on our end, whether it be special teams or, throwing a interception on offense, that really blew the door open. It's really funny to look at how games change. You go and in almost every game you look at, like, there's a distinct turning point in that game. Right. And I think, to me, there were really 2 in that sense. One, they scored, I want to say early second quarter, and then all of a sudden we turned the ball over again, on a special teams. And then, in our fault, we weren't successful moving the ball in a 2-minute. Kind of felt like, hey, it's 20-3. We got the ball back. If we can go down and score, go in with a little momentum, 20-10. Now we're back in this thing. We didn't do our job offensively, and then give up a late touchdown. And I think that really psychologically is a dagger. Anytime you give up points right before the half, that's a huge momentum swing. When it then puts you down, and then at that point, you're feeling all of those 3 degrees. Right. It's a major turning point in so many different areas. But we've got to be better. We've got to be sharper. We've got to get these young guys to understand what college football is all about, and that's something we've been working on a lot in the last 2 weeks.
Absolutely. So let's talk about one of the very big bright spots that actually came out of the game. And I actually said this on the air with Brad. I have him on an All-American watch, and that's your strong safety, Jalen Cowley. Jalen had 11 tackles, and he had 1 pass breakup. And we love this. This is why you coaches always say, play to the whistle, play to the whistle. And on one particular play, there was no whistle. It was a backwards lateral. Cowley, just the instinct that he has, didn't hear the whistle, picks up the ball, and returns that fumble return for 66 yards to set up the offense for another great opportunity. And I was wondering if, you could speak about Jalen and his performance, because I got to tell you, it was fun calling out number 7 a lot on Saturday.
Well, he's a consistent player and has been since day one on our campus. He brings such an intense work ethic every day. And I think ultimately, we need to get guys that just kind of feed off of him and learn from him. He's not the only one like that. We've got other guys that show up and they go to work every day. But, of the young guys, that's a guy that you look at. And the term that we kind of use is that he's a pro. He shows up every day, does his job, whether, he doesn't take a day off in practice. It's the same way, same speed in practice that he plays in a game. And I think ultimately, one of the things we have to continue to coach and continue to instill in our young players is that this isn't a thing where you can flip the switch on. In
Right.
school, maybe they were able to do that. The gap was a lot wider. But when you're in this level and you're in this league, this is the top league in the country, top to bottom. And you've got to be able to show up and go every day and play the way Jalen plays every day.
Right.
We were kind of laughing, I guess laughing is the way I would say it, but some of it was frustration as well, because the honest thing is we as coaches felt that it was one of the worst games that Jalen had ever played. We felt like from a, just kind of a consistency, doing what he was asked to do, executing the plays in the manner that, at the level that he's capable of, we felt like he just wasn't there. But again, that's what you see with a really great athlete is somebody who is still able to show up and make a difference. I think part of it is that the bar is set so high for him that we expect. So even when we feel it's not a very good day, you turn around and he's putting out stats and really making a difference on the field.
Well, obviously, apparently the Mid-States Football Association thought so, as they made him the defensive player of the week. So again, kudos to Jalen and just for having a really great game. And with that, let's shift forward now to what's coming up ahead. As we know that you're playing the same team, so in some ways it's good, right?
Yeah.
They say that all the time when you watch NFL games, right? When you're playing within your division, well, you know who you're playing. So let's just get through the cliches. You know who you're playing. You know what they're about. You know who their standouts are. You've got all the statistics there. I'm sure, like a lot of us, you move past the statistics, as you said prior. But here's the question: what can Spartan fans expect moving forward, knowing that in most phases of the game they were pretty dominating?
Yeah, they were. I think the one thing that we all I think have to expect is that we're going to go out and compete harder than what we did in this first game, and we're going to eliminate the mistakes that really hurt us. We had, like I said, the special teams aspect. It's something that we had practiced, but again, when you are in a game for whatever reason, it's a little bit different to guys. And we talk about, hey, be ready for the blue kicks, the short kicks, all that stuff. But we had freshmen there. To their credit, they did a great job of finding those guys, and we didn't make the plays. So I think that's number one, is just eliminating the mistakes. Don't make the big mistake that's going to hurt us. And we did that in all three phases of the game. We had a pick six, we had turnovers on special teams, we had missed assignments and missed opportunities defensively. So we've got to shore that up. We've got to get everybody understanding what it takes in a preparation standpoint. That's something that we've talked a lot about throughout the course of this season. Unfortunately, what happens is, and I don't really know the answer to this. I think most teams are in the same boat, is until you see an opponent that's different across from you, it's hard to know what that's like. When you have freshmen out there, leading up to the game, I was on them like crazy in practice saying that's not good enough. That's not fast enough. It's not physical enough. All the things that we talk about. And I think that there got to be a point where, some of the young guys are looking at me like crazy. Like, what was coach talking about? I think he's just out here yelling to be yelling. But when you go into a game and you see the speed and the physicality that it takes at this level and in this league, there's no other option. Like, your only option is you're going to start to make the adjustments and understand what it's going to take, or you're going to turn your gear in and you're going to say college football is not for me, because this is a physical league. This and ever since I've been a part of it, both here and at McKendree, maybe we're not necessarily winning national championships or anything like that every year as a league, even though, we have got teams in our league competing for it almost every year. It is a tough physical league from, on both sides, the Mideast and Midwest. And how do you replicate that? You can't, we can do that some in practice, but it's not the same as when you go against another team and see it. And the other thing is this, let's give Olivet a lot of credit. When those preseason polls come out, they're picked as the number 2 team in the league behind St. X. And now, you look at last week, Roosevelt beat St. Xavier last week, and that's a big win for that program. Olivet goes on and they beat Indiana Wesleyan, who is a new program, but I think that they're a program that is got some really talented guys, just like everybody else in our league, and so that's a good win for Olivet. So I think we've got to give them credit as well, that that's a good football team. And, we've got to go and compete. We can't be scared. That's something we talk a lot about is, you've got to go out and put it all on the line. And I think sometimes things that young people are right now is they're afraid of failure. And I think that's something that we've brought up with the guys is, look, you've got to be able to put yourself out there in such a way that failure is more likely than not, because you're just putting it all on the line, and then you keep working because you set your goals so high. And that's really where we have to be. We can't be comfortable in what we do. We've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's what it's going to take.
Well, Coach, I think the big thing when you bring up how Olivet played last week, let's just face it, you're going to be going to the Chicagoland area. This offense has already scored over 100 points in 2 games. Very prolific offense, can certainly almost score at will. So it's going to be really interesting to see the adjustments the Spartans make. Now, you have had an extra week. So you want to kind of speak to that in terms of how that extra week has helped you?
Yeah, I think ultimately the biggest thing that extra week has done is it's helped us get some guys healthy. We weren't out there on our offensive line with our 5 starters that we were planning on when we came in on January. In the beginning of January, Thomas Smith was a guy who was a little bit dinged up, and we were unsure if we'd get him back, and unfortunately didn't get him back for that first game. Mike Malone, he was a situation that he could have played, but was for various reasons we opted to hold him out of that game. He's healthy, he's ready to go. So we get some of these guys back. Unfortunately, we were bit a little bit, I think, not an excuse, but, just a reality is in the COVID world, we had several guys that were not positive, but they were asked to quarantine for 2 weeks leading up to the game. And that was a lot of our DBs and a lot of our and our starting center. So, you're talking about getting cohesiveness after and getting guys up to speed after being away for 2 weeks. And, it's just all things that every team has had to face. And we didn't do a very good job handling all of it, but now we haven't had any of those issues. We've had 2 good weeks of practice, and ultimately, I don't know if we're good enough to make up 59 points. I know their coach texted me today, and he's like, hey, it's going to be about 53, 54 degrees up there, and So I've got my lei and my Hawaiian shirt ready because it's going to be about 70 degrees warmer or 60 degrees warmer than the last time we played. So it'll feel like we're going to the tropics, I think. But ultimately we've got to focus on us, and that's the biggest thing we're trying to do in this spring. We want to go out and compete every week. There's no doubt. I've told the guys that, we're out to win the conference. That's a goal. We're out to put it on the line every day. But we're also, the thing that we're really doing is like, hey, this has got to be a shift in you young guys of what's expected, and you got to start following some of these older guys.
Absolutely. And kickoff's going to be at 1:00, correct?
Yeah, 1:00. We're thinking about possibly moving it due to, Olivet. I'll give them credit. They're having a lot of success, just like we are in a lot of sports, and they've got their basketball teams playing for some championships. I know our basketball teams are in some tournaments now as well. So we weren't able to move it back, so we're going to keep it at 1:00 and go compete.
All right. Well, there you have. Coach B, we want to thank you for taking the time again. Really glad you have an extra week to prepare. Certainly, to really, like you always say, you say it every week. This is really kind of a defining game in some ways, because this is the time to compete. The young guys should know that by now. That look, they're going to make mistakes. It's fine, but it's time this weekend to do the very best that they can do. And I know that Spartan fans, we're really excited to see what happens this week. I know they can catch all the action, and if they just go to MBU Athletics, I know they'll be putting out, or as well as MBU football, on all the social media channels. We'll have the broadcast links so everyone can watch the game as they'll be actually hosting the broadcast.
Yeah, I think that's something that we're really focusing on with our youth, with our young guys, and the older guys too. Because even though we have some older guys, they don't have a ton of game experience. Not all. So, I think the biggest thing that we're talking about is like let's get better every day. Just find something. Let's get better every day, and it starts with bringing your hard hat and lunch pail and going to work. There's no secret sauce. I say this in recruiting. I say it to our team a lot. There's no secret sauce to people that are more successful than somebody else outside of the fact that they just show up and go to work every single day. They don't care what the weather is. They don't care. What things might be, obstacles might be in their way. The easiest thing in life to do is to take your hard hat off, put your lunch pail down and quit. But at the same token, that's not going to get you where you want to be. And that's something that we just have to keep preaching. When you have a young football team and you have an inexperienced football team, it's easy to get down and frustrated, but that's not what we need to do. What we need to do is just continue to get better. And I think if we don't turn the ball over, if we can be a little bit sharper, in the special teams, put our defense in a better situation so that we get more than 8 plays in a half, that scoreboard's going to look a lot different than what it did 2 weeks ago. And does that mean that we come out of there winners? Heck, I don't know, but we're going to show up and go after it. That's for sure.
Well, Coach, we want to thank you for taking the time. For Coach B, my name is Guy Danhoff. We want to thank you for watching right here on the MBU Football Coaches Show with kickoff at 1:00 in Bourbonnais against Olivet Nazarene. You've been listening to the Spartan Digital Network.